Hey, how's it going and welcome to another video. Alright, so today I figured it'd be fun to check out and review the various Persona and Megami Tensei series school uniforms. And this is kind of just a random thought that popped into my head the other day, but I kind of realized that out of pretty much any video game series, I would say Persona especially probably has the most recognizable school uniforms. Anime is a little bit of a different story, but I feel like if you showed me just a bunch of random video game school uniforms, I probably wouldn't be able to piece together which uniform belongs to which game, but with Persona, if you show me any of these uniforms, I'm pretty immediately like, oh yeah, that's this uniform, it's from this game. So yeah, I'm pretty much just going to be showing off and reviewing a bunch of the uniforms from across Persona and Megami Tensei, and I'm pretty sure I have basically every uniform that's represented in the series. There might be a couple of random stragglers, but I'm pretty confident that I have all of them. The only sort of rule that I'm following here is that I can only really review stuff that has official artwork. So anything that doesn't have like a proper design associated with it or it's stuck to sprite form, I can't really check it out. It's very, very difficult to review clothing that's in sprite form, so yeah, other than that, I'm going to be checking out all of them. I have all the main Persona uniforms, all the ones from Megami Tensei, including a couple of deep cut, like really kind of out there uniforms that you've probably never seen before. So yeah, let's get into it. Alright, starting off with the OG of the OGs, we got Jusho High's uniform, which is represented in Megami Tensei 1. So I think these two uniforms are a really good place to start off because if I had to describe them in one word, I'd probably pick classic. These are sort of just the definitive, like, 80s Japanese high school uniform. They're not really too extravagant, they're more like function over form, and they're also probably some of the most realistic looking uniforms. Megami Tensei and by extension Persona definitely gets more creative with these as time goes on, but this is definitely a good starting point. So the male uniform is pretty standard to the point of it being like almost kind of boring. It's got the same flat color throughout it. It's just this sort of gray, green kind of color I'm not really too crazy about. The pants and jacket are the same color. Although I do like the little detail of the school's emblem being on the collar. Other than that though, it's pretty standard. Like I said, you could definitely imagine a Japanese teenager in the 80s just wearing this. Not really a whole lot to talk about, it's pretty normal, but the female uniform I actually like a lot. Like I said, I look at this uniform and I kind of just think classic. Like, the white and blue is just such an iconic color combination. This is sort of the stereotypical white and blue uniform that it feels like all other school uniforms kind of spawn from. So it's kind of perfect that the first Megami Tensei game also has this sort of like progenitor species school uniform. But yeah, I like this one a lot. Very retro, very sort of iconic. And I think it's a great basis to kind of compare back to when we go through some of these future uniforms, since the series definitely gets more creative with these as time goes on. Next up, we have the Karukasaka High School uniform from Shin Megami Tensei If. I already talked about this uniform a little bit when I did my SMT protagonist design review video, but yeah, you know what, why not talk about it some more? And when you compare back to the Megami Tensei 1 uniform, you can already see they're starting to get a lot more creative with these. I really like the dark blue of the jacket, the giant Karukasaka High School emblem is front and center, and the close-up of this emblem on the uniform is actually used as the box for SMT If. So a lot of emphasis was definitely placed on the design of these uniforms in particular. But when shit gets crazy is when you go down to the pants and its striped pattern. You know what these pants remind me of? They remind me of like something that you would have on your shower curtains, right? Like this just has a very powerful bathroom aesthetic kind of energy going on. The girl's uniform is basically the same. Obviously the only difference is the pants are swapped out for a skirt with the same pattern. I just really like the clash of this very realistic blue blazer compared to the goofy-ass weird pattern pants. I think that makes for a really fun kind of dynamic contrast, and it definitely makes the Karukasaka High School uniform stand out. So Shin Megami Tensei as a whole is very, very light on the school uniforms. Like, most of the settings of these games just don't really allow for school uniforms to be all that prevalent, but even in the games where it would make more sense for the characters to be wearing school uniforms, like Nocturne, for example, they just aren't. Most of the time, they're wearing more casual clothes, but Shin Megami Tensei 5 features one of my favorite school uniforms from the entire series, and it is, of course, the uniform of Join High School. So even though the physical kind of colors of the uniform and design of it is pretty standard, it's just your typical pants, long sleeve top combo, and it's all the same sort of flat blue kind of color. What makes it absolutely killer is the addition of the flowers. The flower pattern on these uniforms is so unique, it makes them stand out so much, and I especially like how it feels pretty subtle, right? It's something that kind of just draws your attention to it, but it doesn't really feel overbearing on the design. It has this nice sort of light kind of gray color, and I think it really really stands out since I really can't think of another school uniform from basically anything that has a flower pattern on it. You might be able to find one that has a pretty subtle like emblem on it or something on the collar maybe, but no, the flowers here run throughout the entire uniform, which I think is really cool. Next up, we have my man Raidou rocking the uniform from Yumizuki High School. And Raidou is kind of interesting because in most of his depictions and artwork, he's wearing his full getup, including the cape, which makes it pretty hard to see the actual uniform underneath, but luckily there is some artwork of him just wearing the uniform. And this is another one that intentionally feels very, very retro. It's pretty much just your standard black school uniform, not really anything too exciting going on, but I do really like the gray accents on the shoulders and around his arms. I think that gives it a nice bit of color, but I think my favorite aspect of it is actually the hat. You don't really see hats on school uniforms too often anymore. It's sort of a relic of like kind of mid 20th century uniform design, but yeah, the hat is really cool. Shout out to the hat. All right, so here we have our first sort of like uncommon school uniform. It's also from Raidou, and it's Ouran High School's uniform. Ouran High School Host Club? So to start off with, I really like the colors of this uniform. This kind of purple-pink color I think is really cool. It's not really overpowering like a lot of purple colors tend to be. It's more subtle, so it feels a little bit more kind of realistic. I don't think you'd be seeing a whole lot of purple uniforms in real life, but yeah, I think that purple looks really good, especially when combined with like the black accents on the skirt and around her shoulders. However, I do have one pretty big complaint, and it's her tie. The tie being the exact same color really doesn't look that great. It makes it kind of just blend in. You almost have to do a sort of double take to realize she's even wearing one. So yeah, I wish they had kind of swapped the colors on this tie around. I wish the actual tie was black, and then the letters on the tie would be the same color as the rest of the uniform, so you'd have a black tie with the purple lettering. I think that would have looked a lot better, but otherwise, yeah, I like this one a lot. All right, so next up we have some uniforms from Devil Survivor 2, and DS2 is kind of weird because it's like this eclectic mixture of just different uniforms, and like half of them are from schools that I don't think are even named. As far as I'm aware, Daichi and Io seem to be the only characters who actually wear this uniform, and I'm not really too crazy about this one. I think it's kind of like dull. It also features this blue and white striped tie, which I don't know if I'm just crazy, but I swear this thing is like too tiny. I don't know if this is just like a perspective thing, but it looks so thin at the beginning, right? I don't know, maybe it's like that on purpose, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not crazy about this one. I feel essentially nothing towards it. I think the female uniform is a lot better. It still has that same gray color, but it at least has the black skirt, which makes it look a lot better. And the girl's ribbon also features the same striped color, but I don't know, for whatever reason, I just feel like it looks better on the girl's uniform. I don't know, I can't tell if I'm crazy or not, because I think the female uniform is pretty cute, but I look at the male uniform and I'm just like, this sucks. So yeah, girl's uniform gets a pass. Nice job. The male uniform could use some work. Next up, we have Irie's school uniform. I don't recall if this school has a name. If it does, I'll have it up on screen, but yeah, this one is just another pretty standard looking school uniform. Not really anything too exciting going on. I do like the predominantly black and gray color scheme though. I think that looks pretty cool. But otherwise, yeah, not really a whole lot to comment on. All right, so this one's kind of weird. I mostly included it because I figured if I didn't, somebody would mention it, but Keita is wearing this very strange, fucked up hybrid of his school uniform's top, but then he's wearing just like a pair of shorts. The school he attends is never named, but I figured I would mention it because, you know, it is a school uniform. It's pretty much just a very generic, like, black school uniform. Yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, now it's Persona time, baby. Starting off with Persona 1 Saint Hermelin uniform. So I think this uniform is okay, but it's probably my least favorite out of the Persona series uniforms. And I think that's mostly owing to the colors. I'm really not crazy about this kind of gray sort of color. I don't really think it's all that interesting. The girl's uniform is a pretty similar story. I don't think it really has a whole lot that makes it stand out. So yeah, sorry Persona 1 Nation. I think the uniform's like okay. If it's any consolation, I've been reading the Persona 1 manga. It's pretty good. Might make a video about it. No promises though. All right, so moving on to Persona 2, we have a combination of school uniforms. The first being from Seven Sisters High School, and I definitely like this one a lot more than the Saint Hermelin uniform. I think the combination of the black with the white stripes running along the legs and the arms looks really cool. Reminds me a lot of like a tracksuit. And also the white accents on the collar I think is really, really cool and makes it stand out. I really like how it kind of conforms to the shape of the collar. And I also really like the purple tie. It just adds a nice sort of bit of color. I'm kind of biased because purple is my favorite color, but it makes the tie really pop. And I think it's also a color that kind of just fits in without feeling too out of place. The girl's uniform is pretty similar. It has the same sort of stripes running along the skirt. However, I'm not as crazy about the orange bow that the girls get. I do think it's kind of cool how they're sort of differentiated, where the girls get the orange ribbon and then the boys get the purple tie. But even though I don't like the orange quite as much, I do gotta say it still looks really good. Yeah, Seven Sisters I think is a big winner. I like this one a lot. Very nice. Next up, we have Kasugayama's uniform, more commonly known as Kosei High. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there's any artwork of the female uniforms, so unfortunately I can't really review those, but this bright blue kind of color looks pretty unique. It's just the same flat color across the entire thing. Yeah, it's not bad, it's just not really all that exciting. Next up, we have Persona 3's Gekkoukan High School uniform, and even though Persona 3 is my favorite game, I gotta say, I think the Gekkoukan uniform is like, okay. It has this flat black color all throughout it, which is fine on its own, but it doesn't really have any interesting details that makes it pop. The red, black, and white of the school's logo is pretty cool, but I will say I do really like the girls' uniform's inclusion of the red ribbon. I think that looks really nice, and the red complements the red of the Gekkoukan logo. Unfortunately, the boys are kind of stuck with this black, thin neck piece of some kind, which doesn't really do a whole lot to stand out. So for this one, I gotta say, I think I like the girls' uniform a little bit more. It's good, but probably not one of my favorites. Alright, so now we're about to enter some deep lore shit. This is the uniform from Yamori High School, which is represented in Persona Online, which is a long-defunct Persona mobile game. Yo, anybody want to get a Persona Online private server running? So yeah, these uniforms are okay. They're just a pretty generic, like, gray color, but I do have to say I really like the design of this black stripe running along where the buttons are. And the buttons being this bright yellow, like almost orange kind of color, I think looks really cool. It makes your eyes kind of naturally drawn towards those buttons, so yeah, I think that's a neat little design choice. The girls' uniform is pretty similar, but they have this really nice, like, purple and kind of lavender color looking like frilly thing. I don't know what to describe that as. I'm not a fashion expert, okay? But yeah, I think that thing is really cute. I wish this like purple thingy was designed into a uniform that was like actually seen by people instead of being stuck to this Persona Online thing, but otherwise, yeah, I think these are pretty alright. Alright, now we have Persona 4's Yasugami High School uniform. So this one is another pretty standard flat black uniform, but what I think makes it stand out is ironically something that I don't think I was ever really like consciously aware of until I started this video, but the Yasugami uniform has this kind of like stitched pattern to it that you don't see on literally any other Megami Tensei series uniform, which I think looks really cool. It has this unique sort of like texture to it. It kind of gives the feeling that these are sort of like sewed by hand, which I think really works for the aesthetic of Inaba being this town that's out in the boonies. So yeah, the male uniform I think is okay, but I feel like it's missing something. I kind of feel like if it had just one more sort of element to it, it would really bring it together, but now, the girls' uniform I actually like a lot. The top is pretty similar. It has that same sort of stitched look to it, but I think the addition of their yellow tie really brings it together. The yellow works really well since yellow is kind of like the color of Persona 4. So seeing just that bit of the yellow splashed in, I think looks really cool. And I also like the pattern on their skirt a lot. The sort of like repeating black and gray shapes I think looks really neat. So yeah, once again, I think I gotta give it up to the girls' uniform on this one. I think it definitely looks a bit better. The little addition of yellow and the pattern on the skirt, I think makes it a lot better than the boys' uniform. But they're both pretty good. Alright, so here we have another deep lore uniform. I almost completely forgot about this one. Like, I was about to record the segment about Shujin's uniforms, and then I was like, oh, wait a minute, I forgot one. But yeah, it's Mitsuo Kubo's mystery uniform. I forgot this guy doesn't actually go to Yasugami. He goes to some unknown school, but yeah, it's pretty much just your standard sort of suit jacket looking uniform. You can see the school's logo right there. It's just like a shield with a red and green pattern. The green tie is kind of neat, but otherwise it's, you know, it's there. All right, here we go. This is the big boy. Like, beyond being the most recognizable Persona uniform, I kind of think that it's maybe the most recognizable video game uniform at this point. And it is, of course, from Persona 5 Shujin Academy's uniform. And yeah, I mean, shit, it's pretty good. Just the usage of the red and black is so kind of iconic and so indicative of Persona 5. It takes the philosophy of Yasugami's girls' uniform, including that little bit of yellow, and really just runs with it and makes it the central design element of the whole thing. And yeah, it's just this incredible mixture of three colors: black, red, white. The top looks really good with its overall black color scheme. And then there's the white of the Shujin logo and the red buttons, dude. Those buttons are killer. But what makes it for me are the pants. These are without a doubt the best pants that soejima has ever designed and ever will design. Just the black pants with the red and white lines kind of flowing through each other. This pattern goes hard, dude. Like, I would wear those pants. So yeah, the Shujin male uniform, very, very good. And I think it also helps that it really stands out among pretty much any other school uniform. I think the fact that red is such an important color in it kind of makes all the difference, since red is just a very sort of aggressive color, right? Most school uniforms tend to have pretty neutral sort of colors like whites, whereas you usually want to save red for more kind of like standout pieces of your ensemble, like red ties, for example. But just plastering those little bits of red all throughout the design makes it really, really eye-catching. And I think it's also the fact that, at least to me, this just screams Persona 5, right? I don't think any of the other uniforms do nearly as good of a job kind of incorporating their, like, central color scheme into the design. Like, the Gekkoukan uniform, for example, has no blue in it whatsoever, whereas Shujin's very much feels like this is Persona 5's uniform. The girl's uniform is pretty much the same. Obviously, the big difference is the skirt. It has the same sort of pattern going on, so they're visually pretty similar and both very, very, very good. All right, so we have one more uniform from Persona 5, and I gotta say, I think this one is pretty, like, undercover kino. It's the uniform from Kosei High School, which is attended by Yusuke and Hifumi. And whereas the one from Shujin feels very in-your-face, very kind of unconventional in its color scheme, the one from Kosei feels a lot more understated and more kind of like, I don't know, prim and proper, I guess. But I think they look really good nonetheless. Like, Yusuke wears some kind of weird fucked up version of the uniform where he doesn't actually have the coat on, but luckily there is concept art of what the actual uniform is supposed to look like. And yeah, it's pretty cool. It reminds me a lot of a business suit. I also really like the black and white of the tie, or in the girl's case, the ribbon. There's nothing super flashy about it, but I think it looks pretty good. It's very elegant. And I think it also does a good job differentiating itself from the Shujin uniform, because the Shujin's is red, black, and white, whereas this one is blue, black, and white. So yeah, Kosei's uniform, not bad. Alright, and that about wraps it up. That's, I think, every Persona and Megami Tensei uniform. If I happen to miss one, then I guess I'll die. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and especially a big thank you to my channel members. If I had to give a rough sort of top 5 for my favorite uniforms, I would say Shujin is definitely number 1. I know that's like a generic, boring answer, but I mean, come on, that uniform is tight, bro. This is kind of like an on-the-spot order, but number 2, I would say I really like the Seven Sisters uniform. Just the black with the white stripes and the purple tie, I think is so killer. Number 3, I think I gotta give it up to Joeen. Like, the design of the flowers on the uniform, I think, is just so unique and so cool. Really creative idea. I like that uniform a lot. Number 4, I think I'd have to go with Yasugami. It just has a lot of these nice details I like a lot, like the kind of stitched pattern to it, the yellow ribbon, the design on the skirt. And number 5, I think I gotta go with SMT If's Karukazaka High School. It's just the pants, man. Like, the pants are so bad, they roll back around into being really good. But yeah, make sure to let me know what your favorite school uniforms from the series are. I'll see you guys next time.